15-minute segments as often as you can a day. I don't like to overwork a dog when I'm training them. I give them that recess that a child gets in kindergarten. That's the same thing. And I'm just crawling around, eating dog biscuits, drinking out of the water bowl. Right.
Some say these two trainers were quietly in the shadows. Robert Weatherwax, last of the legendary Lassie trainers, from the world's greatest movie dog training family, was quietly hidden in his TV work. And Christophe Clugston, elite action K9 trainer, was traveling from the sub-zero Arctic to the sweltering jungle heat, training dogs on 3 continents. But a chance meeting changed all of that. Now, Robert and Christophe have joined forces and they're breaking the silence. For the first time, the secretive and hidden world of the movie dog trainer and the science of the elite tactical trainer will be revealed. That's right, they are out of the shadows. Welcome to Tactical Practical.
Here we are, I'm Christophe Clugston, and I'm with, of course, Robert Weatherwax. If you don't know who we are, I don't know, I can give you a short rundown. I'm sort of the K9 action dog trainer, and Robert, of course, is the last of the legendary Lassie trainers, who's done other movie work, of course, and TV work, and trains pet dogs right now.
I don't want people to work their dog to a point of fatigue. I want them to be able to rejuvenate themselves and then start a new session. But do that throughout the day, throughout the week.
And what about training outside on different weather?
And that's a good point, though, because now you can bring up the surfaces. Because if I'm working a dog on grass, yes, I can work for a long period of time. Obviously, working with a long leash allows them a chance to take a break, 15 minutes, 5 minutes sniffing around, 15 minutes back to training again. And as long as it's comfortable and I have shade, and I want it to be a positive experience, and feeling good in every aspect is important in training for the dog and for yourself. If it's too hot for you, it's definitely too hot for the dog.
Oh yeah, they're 10 degrees warmer than we are already, and they can't sweat. They only through the paws, and then of course convection through the mouth. So a lot of people don't get that's a problem. People project how they feel is that the dog is the same way. No, the dog is totally different. There's a different heating cooling system completely for a canine. Right. And something that is important that you brought up, and I feel the same, is a walk. When I say we're going a walk, this means it is the dog. It is for the dog. It's not for me. And it's also, I don't get into this sort of a stormtrooper obedience that I see some people doing with their dogs. Like, oh, the dog must be at heel in his position with me and must be act like he's in the obedience ring competing. And they do their walk like this. I don't do this. And you'll find the best trainers don't do that. They separate them. I want the dog to be able to be a dog, basically. Does that mean running across the field and taking off? No, but it means the dog gets to explore. That's what dogs want to do. And I've got to say this is something that dog owners and dog trainers don't pick up a lot on. Dog's mental health is around his nose. If a dog doesn't get to use his nose, it's like putting you in a isolation box or something.
Which is why you'd never want to have a muzzle on your dog when you're exercising them. Yeah. I mean, you can walk them at a slow pace for a short distance, but you can't take on a mile jog with a muzzle on. It doesn't work.
No, you're trying to kill the dog if you do that, actually. But what I want to say is that the dog, the whole world is really about coming through the nose. I mean, that's what they're using first to figure out the world. Humans are using visual first. And everything, but people try to project that, oh, the dog is looking at things, the dog is smelling things first, and then they'll use other senses to back it up. But it's about educating the owners and beginner dog trainers, or even intermediate level dog trainers, that the dog needs to be able to use their nose. They want to use their nose. They want to figure things out. So when I see these people like, I don't allow my dog to sniff when I go on a walk with them. For dog trainers, people who are dog trainers, you've got to establish structure to your training. You got to be, of course, consistent. Everyone's going to say that, but few people are consistent. You have to have a plan every time that you train a dog, and you got to know what your goals are, and you have to actually know how many times the dog has to do this. And now, study-wise, on the research and everything, the dog needs to hit at 80% before you move on to making the criteria harder. For example, if we're talking about doing stay, and I use the word remain, but I don't say that to the dog. I got to make that clear. When I'm talking remain, I'm using that in semantically for people, because stay in people's minds is, what do you mean stay, sit stay or down stay? But I mean remain, which is, that's not my word I use for the dogs. I don't, and I don't use one language, and I don't use things that have meaning. Sometimes it's all signals, like a traffic light. So anyway, let's say we're working on a remain, and we're going from 30 seconds, and the dog can do 30 seconds 80% of the time. Now we can move up to 45, and then you get 80% of the trials on 45 seconds. We can move on to 1 minute, but you can't go from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. That's what I'm saying. For example, for dog trainers, and especially if you have owners training, you've got to make it really clear on the structure, how you have the progression, the process. The process is incredibly important for dog trainers, and that's why I'm saying you have to have a structure. You have to know what you're doing. Like, what is my goal today? Let's just use this because Robert and I have talked about this. Marks. Now, marks is something that is really unique to movie dog trainers. Really, agility people have tried to bring them in, but they don't use them the same way that movie and TV guys use them. And this is something that's down the road. Robert and I are going to offer training in this, because it's part of the breaking the silence. This is part of the secrets that the general people don't know, and the dog trainers for pet guys don't know, and the people in even sport obedience don't know it really. Anyway, so let's say what is your goal when you're doing this? My goal today is to increase, let's say, the stay. And if you want to do a sit or a down, and you really want to focus on that, if you're an obedience competitor, okay, then you're going to work on the sit, or you're going to work on the down. But how long? You got to know. You can't say, well, I'm just working on it. No. It's got to be clear that you got to be crystal clear in your mind with concrete, obtainable objectives and goals, and they can't be unreasonable. For example, you could teach basketball to everyone, but it's unrealistic to think that a midget's going to play in the NBA, for example. So you can't just start out and start.
It has to be attainable. No.
Right? Yeah. But you do that by progressing. For example, my 1/4 mile stay and sit stay, what the dog's doing, or the recall, I didn't just jump to 1/4 mile. I mean, the dog is a super dog. He's genetically gifted. Yeah, but that dog didn't just go from me teaching him sit, or remain, or a recall, and then the next day I'm going to 1/4 mile. There's a progression there, and that's something that dog trainers need to know. I mean, they need to keep records. They need to keep no, not in your mind. Write it down, because you're going to forget stuff. And if you work with more than 2 dogs, you're going to get confused on where you're at. What dog was that? And Robert has been doing this a long time. So when he works with clients, he knows, okay, I'm going to work with the Schnauzer. Like you probably keep track of them through the dog breeds, right? I'm working with the Schnauzer. When you're working with the Great Pyrenees right now, right? You're working with the Pyrenees and the Schnauzer and some other stuff.
I've worked with, I make mental notes as I go, because not all breeds are the same.
Yeah.
You might work a Schnauzer that's totally different from the last Schnauzer you worked with.
Yeah.
But they're within a range, right?
Right.
You have to have some certain expectations that you can get from just knowing what the breed is. But after my lesson, like a first lesson, for example, I'll make notes about things that I either want to do more or don't want to do anymore. Mm-hmm. The dog's very sensitive to a hand going over the front of them.
Right.
Or very, very sensitive to any foot correction. Just little mental notes that I'll make regarding things that I saw in the first lesson or any subsequent lesson.
Right, and this goes to something that I guess you can call it an art form, but it can be taught, but it takes a long time. This isn't something you can learn from us talking about it. You can't learn it from anybody talking about it. You can't learn it from watching a DVD or streaming videos even, and that's how to read a dog. That takes experience, and that's one of the things that can get Robert going. I can bring things up.
Well, you got to know what to look for. First of all, you got to know what to look for. Like the dog's giving you signals right off the bat.
All the time.
And then it evolves, because then what happens is the dog gets more comfortable with me. And I always tell clients, I say, listen, the first lesson your dog might be really well behaved, and it seems like I'm the most excellent trainer in the world. But wait till the second lesson, when the dog knows me better and starts to test me. You'll see that, it's familiarity. It's not that works against, right? Sometimes you'll see good results on lesson one that don't carry on, and then typically I tell them after a bad lesson like that, where I had to make a lot of corrections, the next lesson tends to be really good, because it's a carryover from all the things that went wrong in the previous lesson.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, and again, we're not trying to explore every aspect of what makes a better dog for you, or what makes you a better owner or a better dog trainer. We're just doing a few of them to raise your awareness so that you can concentrate on these things. And one of the things that I will say that will make you a better dog owner, and a better dog trainer, you need to know about canines. And what am I specifically saying? You need to read books and watch documentaries on people who research into behavior, and they're called ethologists, and they've been changed to behavioral economists. There are people who've done this, and I mean study. I'm not talking about their feelings about the dogs. I'm talking about empirical evidence, and find out about, okay, yes, all modern dogs are from the European wolf, not the American wolf. They're not from the European wolf, but they're not wolves. They are not wolves. We've learned more about wolves through dogs than we've learned about dogs through wolves, for example. And there's been too many people, especially in the early 2000s, who tried to confuse everyone, saying a dog. I just watched a guy who's a pretty good trainer. I mean, by pretty good, he's good. And he was just telling people, you got to remember that dogs are pack. They are not pack animals. Domesticated dogs are, or what we're calling domesticated dogs, is even the pariah dogs, jungle dogs like I have. They're not pack dogs. They're predators. No, they're scavengers. They're scavengers first.
But also omnivores, like wolves. They eat more than just meat.
Right. That's exactly right. Exactly. They're scavengers. So their choice, and that's why they've made it, is because they are scavengers, and they will eat a whole range of things. And they're not just predators, number one. Number two, they're not wolves, and they're not in packs. And what people consider packs, that's a familial unit. A lot of the stuff that was done was research from captive wolves, and they don't interact with each other like they do in the wild. So when people start doing longer term studies of wolves in the wild, they're like, we were wrong. All the stuff we did with captivity was wrong. That whole alpha structuring thing was wrong. It's wrong. And I just bring that up. I'm not going to solve everybody's problem. I'm just going to point the finger to the moon and say, that's the heavenly glory. Go do the research. It's out there. But it's important for you as a dog owner, and especially if you're a dog trainer, you don't know this stuff. And I bring this up to people like, have you read, Ray Copinger's work? Who? And then it's like, all right, you don't care. You need to know more. And this fascinating stuff to me. It's fascinating. And if it isn't fascinating to you, then you shouldn't be a dog trainer. That's something I would say. But as a dog owner, you should look for somebody who does have that depth of knowledge and experience. And that's one of the things that I think that Robert can talk about, is the fact that experience is probably the biggest thing that you bring to the table, if you want to put it that way. I mean, what do you bring to the table? What does he bring? Well, let's just skip the movie stuff for right now. What is he bringing, though, is the experience. And this is something a lot of times you have to clean up the work, basically, of people that are less experienced, don't you? I mean, you have to come in and fix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come in, I'm often the second or third trainer, maybe the 10th trainer that they've had in their entire lifetime, maybe. I have to learn how to read dogs, because people ask me a lot, like, do you know what you're going to do, like, after you talk to them on the phone? Do you know what you're going to do with the dog when you walk through the door? And I'm like, no, I don't really know. But I'll know after about 5 or 10 minutes, because I've been around enough dogs to know the types. They kind of jump out at me. Oh, nervous type. Oh, timid type. Oh, overbearing type. I just have I kind of just play it on the fly, but it's very intuitive training in itself. You can't go out there expecting anything to happen with any particular dog, because every dog is different. Every breed is different. Some big dogs are different than small dogs. You want to elevate small dogs. You want to decrease the feeling of power with the small dog, with a larger dog. So you're basically going against the grain, but you have to find out how much resistance they're giving you before you apply resistance to something that never happened in the first place. Right.
Right, and so, something I'm gonna tie this into something that we haven't explicitly said, and that is that if you consider the language of dogs, and that's visual, they're giving visual posturing signs all the time to each other, and they're giving scent indications to each other, but which we cannot figure out as humans. We can't figure that out, but we can. If you know what you're doing, you can tell from how they're posturing and how they're moving what's going on with the dog. And this is what Robert said in one point in one of these talks about the language of the dogs, which is true. But you got to realize that I've been doing this almost 50 years. Robert is bilingual because he was born into the family that had dogs as professionals. Again, the Lassie whole thing, but he was there with the dogs as an only child, so he knew how to read the dogs from what you're 3 years old. I mean, basically, you're starting to pick this up. So that's why sometimes it's difficult for him in a way to look at the people who don't get it because he gets it. And
yeah, well, they were my role models growing up, because when I grew up, the dogs were all working. They all had special jobs. It's like, oh, this dog's going on this movie, and this other dog's going on this other job. And I was just like, wow, these dogs are doing all this exciting stuff, and I'm just crawling around, eating dog biscuits, drinking out of the water bowl, right? And the dogs are going out on jobs. So I kept thinking, and the dogs ate first too. Everything was about the dogs. It's like, right. We're not going to have dinner until the dogs have eaten, and it was never the other way around. So I don't understand where people say, well, I didn't really have time to do this with my dog, because they were always a priority in my life, and they always will be,
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Robert, you don't have to keep eating out of the dog bowl anymore. That's
right.
That'll go in the front of the video.
Well, people ask me, when did you start walking? I said, well, I started walking when I decided I didn't want to crawl anymore, and that was probably like 6. I was still crawling because I wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Nobody told me I had to, but I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, but okay. But here's something I want to try, because I get it, I understand it, but I don't think all the listeners are going to get it. There was never a time when you didn't understand the dog, right? I mean, that's something this is something that people are getting if they hire you. I get it. I get it. I mean, I understand, but I don't think 99% of the people do. It's like there was never a time that you didn't understand a dog, right? Because you were there. You knew when they were upset, angry, they needed to go to the bathroom, there was something that could set them off. There was something that could trigger them. There was something that they didn't like. There was a sound that was a problem for them. A sound that they liked. There's things that there was never a time, right? I mean, this is not something.
Absolutely. I had no brothers and sisters, so I was like an only child with nothing but dogs around me. And that's an experience that it's hard to simulate that. You can't go to Disneyland, and there's no ride that does that. And not only that, but I was listening to all these great trainers having these business conversations, like my dad talking to Carl Miller, or Dennis Christophe talking to my dad, and I'm hearing all this stuff, and I'm like, wow, these guys are just talking about dogs like all the time, right? We would talk at dinner, we're talking about dogs, or an actor that was in a movie with dogs. So the conversations just revolved around that. It was when my dad went on a location for a job, he'd always say, well, my mom would say, can I go too? And like, well, not on this job. This is a location, not a vacation.
Yeah. I kind of like that. I like that. Your dad said some stuff that I like. We'll have to throw those in, but not now. Oh, by the way, people, subscribe and I got to say this because as we get more people trying to picking up what we're doing, we really are going to start only answering comments from subscribers. I mean, you have to at least do that for us. Subscribe. You can subscribe, like, share this, because it's the only way that we need to grow. We need to get out there. We want to show the people a different aspect of training, because we have a different aspect of training. And again, there's nobody on YouTube that matches our combined experience. And I do things that no one else has done. People get, oh, you're bragging. No. Have I stopped anybody else from doing a quarter-mile recall or a sit stay? I don't think so. Have I stopped someone else from training a 110-pound bulldog from limping, trained limp? No, I haven't stopped anybody. So, hey, take it as a challenge. Don't cave in and fall apart like a millennial. We're just trying to raise the bar. But come on, subscribe, people. But this is something, what I wanted to tie that back to is that's unique to Robert, but that's what he brings to this. What he brings to the podcast is a unique viewpoint, unique experience. Same thing he's bringing to the training. And this is why those people are really lucky. In East Texas, you can get Robert. He actually goes to your house. He will go to your house and train your dog. So I want to bring that up. Oh, I'm back. I'm not as injured as I was, so I'll be back to training other people's dogs. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. And anyway, I mean, we can go on forever and ever. But Robert, is there anything that you're dying to say about to be because it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic. There's many things we can. This is only part one, but something that you need to say to the dog owners or the dog trainer that they should know that you feel that they don't know here.
Well, I think that people have to go in with a clean slate when they get a new dog, because a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I had my last dog, and my last dog was so wonderful, did all these great things. I hardly even had to train him," and I'm like, "Oh, that's right. Don't expect that from your next dog. If you get it, that's great, but don't expect it, because this dog may be completely different. He may be better in some ways than your previous dog, but he might be worse in maybe more ways than your previous dog. You don't know that, but you have to kind of just accept the dog for who he is, just like you accept a new person in a new friendship. They're not like your other friends. They bring something different to the table, and you have to recognize each dog for their strengths and their weaknesses as a dog, as a breed, and you also have to realize your own weaknesses as a trainer and try to accentuate working on those things that you're not strong on. And between you and your dog making improvements, you'll become the perfect pair.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the future, so we're thinking ahead. We're going to be offering workshops and clinics on exactly these sorts of things. So that what am I doing? Well, what am I doing wrong? Well, we'll be able to tell you. that's something we'll do access. So we can also do that now if you want to do virtual training. If you want to send us tapes or whatever, we can do that. It's sort of a consult. It's consult and it's training. We can do that. So I just want to put that out there for people that there's a lot of things that we do. I mean, we have plans down the line for things, but right now, because you're like, I can't get to Oklahoma. I'm in Oklahoma. I can't get to Texas where Robert's at. It's like, okay, that's okay. You can send us video. We can also do virtual lessons if you want to do that. But we have a lot of things planned down the line. But don't wait. Right now, take advantage of this moment. Right now, that's something I would say. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect time. There is never a perfect time. Don't wait for the perfect weather. There is never going to be the perfect weather or anything else. Start learning now. Increase your horizons. Take in more sources of information. Look at all sorts of types of dog training and decide what you want to do with your dog. And also listen to us. What is the best information or advice that you can give owners to help their dog learn, would you say, and motivate their dog to learn?
Well, you got to make it positive. You have to accentuate the positive as opposed to making a bigger deal about the mistakes they're making. I kind of overlook the mistakes. We just work through them. And we work back to a moment when I'm in a position to reward the dog for something that they did right. So I'm accentuating the positive as opposed to playing keep away like you do with your kids. Don't touch that, and don't do that. And it actually makes them want to do it more. Right. Because they're being constantly reminded of the fact they're not supposed to do it, right? Yeah. I kind of work through that. I kind of minimize the mistakes so that the dog can only thinks about the things they did well, especially in the beginning of training. Obviously, you can use a little bit more correction as the dog begins to understand you better, reads your body language,